Hey, everybody. My name is Will Martin, and I am a nurse practitioner working in emergency medicine as well as hyperbaric medicine and wound care. And I've gotten some questions that I just want to answer by video rather than responding individually, because I think there's probably a lot of people that have questions about uh, doctoral education in particular. I get a lot of questions on that. So let's talk about it. So, first of all, my kids, they get pretty tired of it. You know, when I do something at home that seems profound or correct in their opinion, I'll say to them, well, of course. I mean, I have a PhD. I mean, what did you expect? And they get really tired of hearing that. But the fact of the matter is, I do tell them, I say, do you know why I have a PhD? Because I identified that goal and I hung in there and I achieved it. I am not the smartest person in the world. I am average in intelligence, but I am determined. And certainly as I've gotten older, I'm even more determined than I was, maybe in my 20s or even my 30s. So that's what any college degree signifies, is that you've identified a goal and you've reached it. It doesn't qualify you to do anything beyond hanging a diploma on the wall, and I've got a few of them back there. So it's what you do after you graduate that matters. And what have I done, and does it help me clinically in my practice? The answer is not a whole lot. I mean, I've always been able to read the literature and interpret it and apply it to my practice. And I think the PhD has just bolstered that a little bit. It's given me a little bit more validity when I sit among colleagues and say, well, here's why I think this is strong or weak, because I can add a little bit based upon my training in my doctoral education, and particularly my PhD education. The DNP education, not quite as much. My DNP program was not heavy into research. I know a lot of DNP programs are getting that way now, but mine was not. But in any case, I think overall, I think anything that you do educationally is going to make you a stronger clinician, whether it's purely academic or more clinically focused. You're just going to be a better person overall. You're going to be able to speak to more people about more things. I'll tell you one thing. I have had wound care patients that have come in and they've had their PhD. And when they see on my jacket that I have PhD, it's like an instant connection between them and me. It's just little things like that that make a difference. And again, I mean, the more diverse you are, the more diverse your background, the more you can talk about things with people. I think that's an advantage of getting older, but it's also an advantage of having a lot of different life experiences that you can talk to people about things. I don't care if it's in the emergency department or wound care, hyperbarics. I mean, I know a little bit about fixing cars. I know a little bit about carpentry and remodeling. I know a little bit about this, enough to be dangerous on any of those things, but enough that I can have conversations with people. So the PhD is just another aspect that diversifies my background a little bit. So another question that I have presented to me quite a bit is the difference between the DNP and the PhD. And I think that's a hard one to answer now, because when I got my DNP, which was in 2011, the DNP was it was a clinically focused program. You had to have a certain number of clinical hours of experience. I mean, and I was already a nurse practitioner, but I had to submit more clinical hours in order to satisfy the state of Texas, because I did my DNP down at TCU in Fort Worth, Texas. And beyond that, though, the curriculum was certainly more science heavy. It was a course in proteomics and genomics and genetics, and things that I had not gotten in my graduate work back here in New York. So the DNP was very interesting to me. And the reason why I went for a DNP back then was I didn't think I could survive a PhD program. I just couldn't see myself going through all the steps necessary to get a PhD. And so at that time, I did what I thought I could do, and I did it, and it was fun, and I survived it. Fortunately, by having the DNP, I found a PhD program that would give me some advanced standing at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and I was able to transfer most of my DNP credits into that PhD program. And it was at the time that I did it, it was an immersion program where I went to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania for like 4 days, twice a semester, and met with the entire cohort. And it was a great experience. It was a blast because we got to sit with a bunch of people that were all working on their PhD along with you. A lot of them were original PhD students that didn't have their DNP, but they combined us. And, it became one of those things where you got really close with a lot of people. You went to dinner every night, you had breakfast in the morning. A lot of you stayed at the same hotel. So that was a great experience as well. I would say that if you can persevere any program, DNP or PhD, go for it. The PhD certainly has more hoops to jump through, particularly when it comes to the dissertation. I also think that a PhD faculty is more protective of the PhD degree, and they want to make sure that you are really prepared and qualified before they grant you that title. So there is just a little bit more protection of the degree title, and maybe that's just my opinion, and it may not be true, but I just feel like there was just a little bit more work that you had to do to join that club of the PhD club. But it's not something that's undoable. You can do it. You just have to set your mind to it and sit back and just enjoy the ride and show up and do the work, meet the deadlines, and before you know it, just like anything else, time will pass and you'll be done. So if you're thinking of it, do it. Even if you're not going to become some great scholar or professor or something like that, in some way or other, it's going to benefit you. And that's always been my feeling about any degree or any training program whatsoever, is that this is somehow going to benefit me. I may not be sure right now what it's going to do, but it's going to benefit me. Now, it comes down to the cost too, right? I mean, if you're paying out of pocket for this, then that's a whole different story. Don't go and get yourself into mounds of debt for something that you're not sure you're going to use. In my case, I was fortunate. I mean, I had scholarships and other ways to pay for it, and it wasn't out of pocket. So that was another reason. I said, why not do it? I mean, it's not costing me anything, so why not go and do it? But of course, that's the whole reason why I became a nurse in the first place. To get my RN was free, as long as I offered to work for the hospital afterwards, which I did. So, the whole thing is, don't get yourself into mounds of debt over it. It may not be worth it unless you have a very clear path. A lot of the people that I did my PhD with were actually professors at universities, and those universities were paying for them to get their PhDs. So they were all going pretty much free ride. So I had other people ask me about the dissertation, and the dissertation, is it really as scary as some people make it out to be? And it's not, because in most PhD programs, if you're able to kind of identify in general what your research interest might be, even if you don't have it hammered down completely, if you have a fair idea what your research interest might be, then a lot of the work that you do throughout your coursework, when it comes to writing papers, you're going to write papers that are going to be kind of influenced by that research topic that you might pursue at the end. So if you're smart, you're going to identify in general what you might want to do in research, and then everything that you do beyond that is going to somehow connect, so that at the end, when it comes time to write your dissertation, you already have a lot of literature and citations, references, things that you've compiled over the previous 2 or 3 years of your didactic work that you're going to now use in your dissertation. So that's one big piece of advice is if you're going to go into a PhD program, have a general idea of what your research interest is going to be, because it has to be original, has to be something that somebody hasn't done before. So be thinking about that, before you go in. But is a dissertation difficult? No, it's time consuming. It's like anything. It takes time. But a professor said this to me, but I've also heard many other people say this too. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's exactly how you do the PhD is you just take it off one little bite at a time. And then eventually, before you know it, you're done. And it's like a lot of things that are anticlimactic. It's like you're done, and it's like, well, okay. I thought there was supposed to be some big feeling when you're done, but when you're done, you're just glad that it's over with, and then it frees up time to do other things. Now, if you have a real interest in teaching, then you probably are going to have your PhD. If you're going to teach graduate students or teach other doctoral students, you have to have a PhD in most programs. And certainly there's nothing wrong with that. I think that if you have the ability to survive a faculty experience, then by all means go for it. My only teaching experience was adjunct, and I did a lot of adjunct teaching. So I'm kind of like, orbiting around the faculty, but I wasn't necessarily part of the faculty. Although some universities that I taught at, some colleges I taught at, even the adjuncts had to come to some faculty meetings. So I got a little insight into what went on in faculty meetings. I didn't really like it very much. And I know that this sounds bad, but, I'm a full-time practicing clinician, and a lot of faculty in nursing programs, for example, don't have a lot of clinical practice experience. Some do, so I don't want to, generalize too much, but a lot of them don't. And I think that's a detriment to themselves as well as their students, because they don't have a lot of experience to draw upon when they're discussing clinical practice or teaching clinical practice. On the other hand, some of them are very good educators. They can take a topic that maybe they don't know a whole lot about, but they have a way to really lay it across to students and make it stick. So that's a talent. And that's a talent that I don't think I have, or maybe I just don't enjoy it as much. I don't know. But if you think that you can survive the faculty experience, then you'll probably survive a PhD program, no problem, too. So I think to sum it up, whether you're thinking about a DNP or a PhD, if you're really ruminating about should I do it or shouldn't I do it, the fact is it's going to take you some time. Some of that time is going to be spent in a very lonely office setting or somewhere like that where you have to be away from people. And if you're that type of person that enjoys that, then by all means, you'll do just fine. But either one of those degree tracks requires that you take coursework, just like your undergraduate and your graduate coursework. It's just a little bit more is expected within those courses. It's a couple of degrees higher in intensity, but certainly nothing that's not doable. And in the end, you will become a better writer. You will become a better explainer of things because you will get a lot of experience with that in your program. A lot of programs require that you do a lot of presentations, a lot of singular presentations in front of the class. And so if you have some performance anxiety, you have to kind of get over that because you're going to be doing that. But it's like anything. I mean, once you do it a few times, it's not a big deal. I think the harder thing is sitting here in front of a camera and doing a YouTube video. I think that's the really hard thing to do. So anyway, for those of you that are thinking about going ahead and doing advanced education, by all means, go for it. Just one word of caution, don't saddle yourself with a lot of debt Find a way to have somebody else pay for it. Find a program that is fully funded or mostly funded, but just don't get yourself into a ton of debt. Right now, in this world and with this economy and the way everything is, it's just not a good idea to get yourself into a ton of debt. I mean, if you're already working as a nurse, you already have a good solid job. Wait until things get better, or again, find somebody to pay for it for you. That's my biggest advice. Beyond that, good luck, everybody. And I'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye.